Welcome to my channel. This is Bridgetti Limbanda from Be Live Media. Live video is still a relatively new but rapidly growing marketing concept. And so for those of you who are embarking on this journey, being authentic and vulnerable, which are both winning strategies, in front of a live video camera can be uncomfortable and somewhat daunting in the beginning.
Bridgetti, you're still muted, dear.
Thank you, Viola, and welcome everyone. On the CuppaChino Club's social TV channel, we do daily updates of how businesses and industries are coping with the unintended consequences of coping with COVID-19. And we talk about how businesses can pivot or how they are struggling to pivot, and just in general coping with everyday life. Don't go away, we will be right back.
Best is yet to come.
If you're just joining us, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Bridgetti Limbanda from Cape Town in South Africa, and I'm very passionate about responsible social media. And so on this show, we talk about COVID-19 in a responsible manner. Today is day 45. Every day I have to feel like I need to pinch myself when I say which day we are on. It's day 45 of the lockdown in South Africa. My amazing co-host is Viola Manuel. She is an accomplished senior executive and was the CEO of the Cape Chamber of Commerce and Industry, as well as the executive director of the Cape IT industry. Viola now serves as a non-executive on the National Sea Rescue Institute and is also the deputy chair for the Cape Town Stadium. She's got two entrepreneurial adventures, G&V Retail as well as Afri Wellness, but she always says that her most proud achievement is her amazing son, 10-year-old Shay. So she's right on the ground there with all of you entrepreneurs and has first-hand experience of what it's like running a business under COVID-19. Viola, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Bridgetti. It's just been so interesting. I am currently dealing with banks, just no income into some of the accounts just because trading has stopped. Just for us, for example, we're going to launch a brand new range into our retail business. That's all been put on hold. And of course, writing emails between yourself and your banker all the time, just trying to keep the banker informed. We've had a chance to pivot as well, starting to look at masks, but sort of high activity masks, so the ones that don't collapse on your face. I don't know if any of you have tried to walk or jog or run with that mask right close to your face. It's probably the most uncomfortable thing. So we're busy looking at a very, starting to push a very interesting design with our clients. And so it's allowed us to keep in touch with our clients. And also just to be able to, sort of take advantage of the lull in normal sort of everyday business and try and find new ways to start, getting the bank account active again. So it's difficult. It is really, really tough. I'm very concerned. Lots of the conversations we're having with our bankers, with your bond originators, with everybody, you're sort of talking about a 3-month reprieve, 4-month reprieve, but this is going to be so much longer. The impact of COVID is going to be just so much longer than we anticipate. Some of the conversations we're having now starts to talk about, Benoit from the CEO of the Water Chamber, he sort of mentioned August, September, and that's the date that's floating around now in circles around the fact that this thing is only going to peak then. which of course means that there's going to be major implications for once the peak has happened. The Western Cape's numbers, Brigitte, are unbelievable.
I know. I was looking at how we have taken over the lead in terms of COVID-19 cases from Gauteng by a massive margin. I think today we've got 637 confirmed cases, of which a staggering 453, I beg your pardon, has occurred in the Western Cape. That's quite a significant figure.
Yeah, so those are just new infections for now. And of course, the Premier started to speak about the fact that he's looking at a strategy to deal with the hotspots. Hotspots being wherever people gather. So your supermarkets, your malls, all of those places are now are being identified as hotspots for the spread of the virus. So I know that the Premier is busy working here, and his team are busy working on how to deal with that, because at the moment, national government have really sort of, in my mind, had a blanket response to the country as a whole. And I really think that the premiers are now being tasked with the job of actually looking at their provinces in a lot more detail. Fortunately for me, and just this is just from the little bit that I see and from my little part in the space in the world, it does seem that the health of South Africans is still trumping the political battles that we used to be privy to in the newspapers and so on. It seems that people are still working together, political parties are still working together, and that gives me a lot of hope that they'll work together to try and come up with some kind of solution, especially for our province.
I believe that you are 100% spot on there. I think we're all seeing the unintended consequences of COVID-19 from our tiny little perspective. Perhaps from the perspective of wanting to take care of our own families, perspective of wanting to take care of putting food on the table for ourselves,
yes.
Perspective of being the CEO of a small business or an entrepreneur and wanting your business to survive.
Yep.
And, I don't want to be in the place of government or any official or the president right now who has to have a more global perspective. And take care of the communities who can't take care of themselves. That's
Absolutely.
And balance that with keeping the economy going. It's a tough act.
It's a very tough act. It's very much sort of the CEO or COO role. You sit in board meetings, you have, sort of very broad view of your business, where your business is going to, where the group is going to, the strategy, and then you have sort of one of your managers or your supervisors that doesn't seem to understand some of the decisions that you make at that strategic platform. And so you have one of the supervisors, barking up the wrong tree on certain issues, and it always is about
how to undermine you.
Correct. How do you actually bring those two together? So I think the presidency and the government have done a great job of keeping us informed. But it now seems that, one of the things I would have liked to see maybe is a regular update from the president, just a regular check-in. We've seen now that, when he needs to make an announcement, we see him, and the whole country almost takes this breath of relief, just to see him and to hear him gives us a lot more confidence in terms of our collective Team South Africa's battle against COVID-19. But one of the things that I am starting to feel is that, just a regular checkup, a weekly checkup with the president, just standing and saying, hi guys, how's it going? This is, some of the things that we're dealing with. These are some of the things we're looking at. I just feel that would give us continued comfort during this time. And level 4 was announced, and then, he sort of hands over to the ministers. But I still think that, he's got such a lot of respect and gaining, people are continuing to, just the respect that we have for him continues to grow every time he makes these decisions. So it would be great to just hear him more often, not just to sort of make the big announcements, but more just to comfort the country. I just think that, there's a lot going on for him, but if, those 15 minutes could just happen, and even if it's just sort of just a live streaming, or a recorded message, just something from him constantly. But it just seems that he's sort of gone back into meetings, and we'll have to wait to see him again when a new announcement is made. And I think that's one of the things that I would like to see a little more of. I would love to see the president more, just comforting the nation.
I agree. I think that's a good point. So coming up in terms of moving forward for the next few days, and that is kind of how we are living our lives these days. It's hard to even plan for a week.
Crazy.
So at this point, it's kind of just, what are we going to do in the next 2-3 days?
Yes,
It's kind of where we're at. So one of the things that's coming up in the next few days is an announcement we're expecting with regards to schools. Now,
yes.
you've got a son at school. As a mom, putting on your mom hat, how are you feeling about the possibility of sending him back to school and being, out there with other people?
Yeah. So the minister is expected to make a decision or make some kind of statement to the nation on Thursday about kids returning to school. And I just want to say, that I'm always so painfully aware of the fact that Shay's my son's circumstances. It's really not reflective of this of the the person in the street, because he goes to a private school. There's 10 of them in a class. It's crazy. So paying ridiculous amounts of money for that, but it's not sort of one of the schools down the road on the Cape Flats. So I'm always very aware of that when I speak. So I speak from my frame of reference. Shay's school has got branded uniform. I'm absolutely certain they're going to come up with branded masks, anything to get another buck out of the parents. But my biggest concern is not that everybody's sort of throwing these stats around about how kids, there are very few records, very, very, the record of kids dying of COVID-19 is non-existent and so on. But my concern is not so much about that. It's about the fact that they would carry that virus. If it is at school, they would carry that virus to their teachers. They would carry the virus to back home. And we, for example, my mom and dad stay with us, and they're both over 80. So him coming from school, he might be asymptomatic, but he's definitely going to bring it. And, both of them have their health problems. So those are the concerns that I have. I have concerns for him. I have concerns for his health. But if the stats are anything to go by, my concern should lean more heavily towards my elderly parents who he comes home to every day. So, and they are actively involved in Shay's life. So those are the concerns that I have. I think, when I'm considering public schools, there is no way that the few teachers that there are, Brigitte, are going to be able to actively facilitate and watch all those kids and make sure that they're keeping social distancing, make sure that they're keeping their masks on, that they're not sharing food, that they're sanitizing regularly. It's going to be an incredibly difficult burden on those teachers.
I personally, I don't have children at school any longer, but, my heart goes out to the overcrowded schools on the Cape Flats, because that is still a thing. It is a thing.
Absolutely.
Overcrowding is still a thing on the Cape Flats. And, to me, there's also the consideration of the risk to the teacher.
Yes.
If you think of the ratio of children per classroom to that teacher who's now being exposed to young people that come from all kinds of households where he or she is not sure of the hygiene conditions, even masks, kids are going to be touching that mask up and down all day.
Absolutely.
They're going to be shifting with it. Are they even going to wear it? How is she even going to enforce that at school level? And if you get a teacher going down, what are you going to do? You have to close the school because that teacher has now exposed the staff.
Yeah,
there's all kinds of complications involved.
Absolutely. And remember that, Brigitte, this is already an overworked teacher. This is already an overworked teacher. This teacher's already got more grades than she's supposed to or he's supposed to. They are, just doing so much more than teachers used to do in the past. This same overworked teacher, we are now expecting that person to also look to see that kids have masks on, that they're doing social distancing. So I'm very, very keen to sit and hear what the minister is going to say on Thursday about kids returning to school. Social distancing, really, how are they going to get that right with the kids at school? The biggest issue is that we need to get our kids back into a structured environment for their education to continue. And that's, again, about that balance. It's about the balance of the fact that these kids future is at stake. Are we going to lose another generation? South Africa can't afford it. We need to skill our kids. We need to make sure that our children are going to school. Educare centers, parents are not paying. Their children have been at home. They don't realize that educare center still has to tick over. That educare center still has to pay water and electricity. They still have to pay rent wherever they are. They still have to pay teachers for being at home. They have to continue to pay. But parents are saying, we're not paying school fees. We're not paying creche fees. We're not paying educare center fees because my kids are at home with me. They are, that kind of, sort of one-dimensional thinking is really not going to help, because when COVID-19, when lockdowns lifted, there are going to be no educare centers. There are going to be no established places for you to send your child to when you have to go back to work. So, there's just so much that it's always about this trade-off. If we do this, what suffers? If we do that, what suffers? It's not easy. It is so not easy. And so when I listen to people being so overly critical and, just in a very simple-minded way, being critical of complicated and complex issues, it's actually very frustrating.
It definitely is a very complex thing. And again, I want to remind ourselves we need to check our privilege, because yes, if we've got children and we've got access to internet, we've got access to computer and access to technology, it's all good and well because education is continuing. But what about those thousands of people on the Cape Flats who don't have access to the internet, who does not have a dedicated computer that their kids can be schooled on? It's a massive balancing act for the Department of Education. And again, I don't want to be in their shoes to be making this kind of massive decision that's going to impact on the lives of so many people.
Absolutely. But then on the other hand, there's lots of really good stuff happening. I mean, one of the things, talking about the next few days, one of the guests we're planning to have on our show is Daniel and Daneo, the two students from UWC who are working with Cape Biotech at the moment. They've designed a new test, which apparently is amazing and just so much better than what they currently have. And you wouldn't have to wait very long to find out your status in terms of your COVID-19 infection rate. So it will definitely add a lot more data in terms of our infection rate. It's going to be the kind of test that people could use themselves. So it's a really great invention. So we're quite keen to have them on board and have an opportunity to interview them. We've spoken to their PR agency, and they're currently fellows of the Alan Gray Foundation. So they need to jump through a few hoops there to sort of appear publicly. And they're also, of course, waiting for a lot of their registrations and trademarks and those kinds of important issues to be confirmed, and then they'll be able to chat to us. So I really think pushing the whole idea of testing kits that are easy to use, that get you results quite quickly, will tell us who's infected and who's not infected. It will tell us where the infection rates are, where the infection hotspots, and the data to collect from something like that would be amazing. So there's lots of good progress also being made. Lots of sort of, even if it's just for a short period, lifting of some of the restrictions in terms of being able to move house, in terms of being able to move your kids from one province to another. And so there are deadlines on that, but they've sort of lifted those things as just part of the sort of practical approach to dealing with COVID-19 and the impact it's having on people's lives. So so that's quite exciting. I'm very excited to speak to Daneo and Daniel. And then tomorrow, we finally have been able to get a date from one of the guests who's been on the show already, Kim. She's one of the senior executives in one of the labor federations. She's going to be talking to us about where labor sits from within the industry that she operates in. And then we have another very exciting guest. We're just waiting to confirm the guest and, of course, go through all our documentation. But this guest has actually done something amazing in terms of pivoting. We were chatting about, now with you working from home, lots of businesses are finding out that there's a lot of fat in their staff complement. Or you sit with a situation where you don't have enough work for the amazing team that you've put together. You really don't want to let that team go, because as soon as restrictions are lifted, you're going to need that skill. What do you do with them? And what he's done is he's created an amazing platform that actually allows you to almost match your team's staff and skill, your team's capability and skill level with possible projects coming out. So, you might have a business that has pivoted and now sits with this huge project that needs to happen. It's a short-term project. You don't need to be employing people for it, but you have the opportunity to actually use the team from somebody else's business, and he'll do that matchmaking. So that's a very interesting business, and it's really just come out of the COVID-19 crisis. So lots of exciting people to chat to.
Absolutely. I think we've got a fine lineup going for the next week at least. We've got a great lineup coming up. I think that's all we've got time for today. And so thank you for joining us on all our social media platforms. And we look forward to chatting to you again tomorrow. Stay safe, everyone. And again, when it comes to sharing news about COVID-19, make sure that you fact check, hit the pause button before you hit the share button. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody, and be safe.